Someone gets close, really close, and something inside you starts looking for the exit. Not because you don't care, not because you don't want connection, but because the closer someone gets, the more unsafe it starts to feel. So you go quiet. You pull back. You get busy. You create just enough distance to breathe again. And then, when they finally stop trying, you miss them. If that cycle sounds familiar, this video is for you. Because what's happening inside you is not a character flaw. It is not a fear of love. It is a nervous system that learned, very early, that closeness comes with a cost. An understanding that changes everything. Avoidant attachment is the most misunderstood of the 4 attachment styles. And that misunderstanding has a cost. People with avoidant attachment are often described as cold, independent, or emotionally unavailable. But those descriptions miss something fundamental. Avoidant attachment is not the absence of a need for connection. It is a learned strategy for protecting yourself from the pain that connection once brought. Beneath the self-sufficiency, beneath the emotional distance, beneath the pulling away, there is almost always someone who wanted closeness deeply and learned through repeated experience that wanting it too much was dangerous. Attachment theory, developed by John Bowlby and expanded by Mary Ainsworth, describes avoidant attachment as a response to a specific kind of early relational environment. Not necessarily one of dramatic abuse or neglect, but one where emotional needs were consistently met with withdrawal, dismissal, or discomfort. A caregiver who became distant when the child was distressed. A parent who communicated, implicitly or explicitly, that needing things was a burden. A household where independence was praised and vulnerability was either ignored or penalized. In that environment, the child's nervous system did something remarkably intelligent. It stopped reaching. Not because the need disappeared, but because reaching had become associated with disappointment, rejection, or the discomfort of being too much for someone who couldn't hold it. That strategy, stop needing, stay self-sufficient, keep emotional distance, was protective once. It allowed you to function. It allowed you to avoid the specific pain of reaching for someone and finding them unavailable. But nervous system strategies don't automatically update when circumstances change. The same pattern that protected you in childhood now activates in adult relationships, with partners, with friends, with God, in situations where closeness is actually safe. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference yet. It only knows the pattern. And the pattern says, when someone gets too close, create distance. This is why avoidant attachment can feel so confusing from the inside. You genuinely want connection. You feel its absence acutely when it's gone. But when connection is actually available, when someone shows up, stays, and tries to get close, something in you resists it. You get irritable for no clear reason. You notice their flaws more intensely. You start to feel suffocated by the very presence that you were longing for just days before. This is not inconsistency. It is a nervous system doing exactly what it was trained to do, regulating distance to stay safe. In Christian communities, avoidant attachment often goes unnamed and unaddressed for a long time because many of its behaviors look like virtues. Self-sufficiency looks like strength. Emotional reserve looks like wisdom. The reluctance to need people looks like trusting God rather than leaning on humans. But there is a difference between healthy independence and the compulsive self-reliance that avoidant attachment produces. Healthy independence can still receive care. it can still let people in. It knows how to be vulnerable without feeling annihilated by it. Avoidant self-sufficiency, by contrast, cannot tolerate being truly known, because being known means being seen, and being seen means risking the rejection that once came from the people who were supposed to be safest. John 11:35, the shortest verse in Scripture, records that Jesus wept at the tomb of Lazarus. He didn't maintain composure. He didn't create distance from the grief of those around him. He moved toward it. He allowed himself to be affected. This is the opposite of avoidant protection, and it matters theologically because it reveals that the God of Scripture is not a distant, emotionally unavailable presence. He is a God who draws near, who enters the hard places, who does not pull away when things become painful. If this is already describing something you've carried for a long time, subscribe to this channel. Every week I create content at the intersection of psychology and Christian faith. I don't want you to miss what's coming next. So what does healing avoidant attachment actually require? Because the instinctive answer wasn't just let people in, just trust more, just be more vulnerable, misses the neurological reality of what's happening. Telling someone with avoidant attachment to simply open up is like telling someone with a broken leg to just walk. The instruction isn't wrong. The timing is. Healing has to go deeper than behavior change. It has to address what the nervous system believes about closeness, and that belief only changes through experience, not through decision. The first thing that shifts in healing is awareness. Learning to recognize the moment the pull-away impulse activates, not after you've already withdrawn, but in real time as it's happening. The tightness in the chest when someone expresses a deep need for you. The sudden irritability that appears just when a relationship is going well. The urge to pick a fight or find a flaw right at the point of genuine intimacy. These are not random. They are signals. The nervous system reaching for its old strategy. And the moment you can name what's happening, you have a fraction of a second of choice that didn't exist before. The second shift is tolerating the discomfort of staying. Not performing openness, but choosing, deliberately and repeatedly, to remain present when every trained instinct is saying, create distance. This is uncomfortable. It is supposed to be. It is the discomfort of the nervous system being asked to revise a prediction it has held for decades. It does not happen quickly, but each time you stay, each time you resist the pull toward distance and nothing catastrophic happens, your nervous system registers something new. The update is slow, nonlinear, and profoundly real. The third shift, and this is the one that faith uniquely addresses, is the reorientation of where security comes from. One of the deep roots of avoidant attachment is the implicit belief that depending on anyone is ultimately dangerous, that self-sufficiency is the only reliable form of safety. And in a world of imperfect humans, there is some truth in that. People do withdraw, people do disappoint, relationships do end. But the Christian faith introduces a relationship that operates by different rules entirely, a presence that does not withdraw when you need too much, a love that does not diminish when you are seen fully, a constancy that does not depend on your performance, your emotional availability, or your ability to hold yourself together. This does not mean using God as a substitute for human connection. That is its own kind of avoidance, and the tradition has always been clear that humans are meant to be an embodied community with one another. But it does mean that as the experience of being known by God becomes more real, not as theology, but as lived encounter, the nervous system's foundational assumption begins to shift. That closeness doesn't have to end in abandonment. That being fully known doesn't have to mean being rejected. That love at its deepest level is not a threat. Healing avoidant attachment is quiet, unglamorous work. It happens in the small moments, the conversation you didn't end early, the need you expressed instead of suppressing, the vulnerability you allowed instead of deflecting with a joke or a subject change. It happens in therapy rooms and in prayer, and in the slow, faithful accumulation of relationships where you stayed a little longer than felt comfortable and the world didn't end. You are not condemned to distance. The pattern that was built can be rebuilt. And the first step is simply this: noticing it, naming it, and deciding one moment at a time that closeness is worth the risk. If this reached something in you today, subscribe to this channel. Every week I create content at the intersection of psychology and Christian faith, because your inner life matters and you deserve the language to understand it. You are not alone in this.